Okay, hello. We'll talk today about an excellent Danish architect, C.F. Moller. He has, of course, the first two letters are initials. We'll learn his full name now. Christian Frederick Moller, born on the 31st of October, 1898, and he died on the 5th of November, 1988. So he lived for 90 years and generally referred to as C.F. Moller, was a Danish architect, professor, and from 1965 to 1969, the first rector of the Aarhus School of Architecture. His former practice, architect firm at C.F. Moller, which he founded in 1924, still exists and bears his name. It is today the largest architectural firm in Denmark, with branch offices in several countries. And I will show also some works done by the present day firm bearing his name. This was the man, and I think, I mean, you know, he did some works in the years leading to 1988 when he died, which are excellent. And I think in no way inferior to the works of architects better known than he is. I actually know of him when I published many years ago an essay on Danish architecture in the Romanian magazine Secolul 20, and since then his name remained with me, C.F. Moller. And we are going to see a work that I published at that time in connection with what I wrote. We begin with the earliest work that is mentioned on Wikipedia as part of his oeuvre, the Aarhus. He actually lived and worked in this city all his life. And the largest architectural firm in Denmark, which bears his name, is also based in this, has its headquarters there, but they have offices in other cities and other countries. So this is a hospital, and I admire the ethics of aesthetics in Denmark. In fact, the name of the essay I published in 1980, I think it was around 1980, so 42 years ago or so, it was called Morala lucrului bine făcut, the ethics or the morals or the morality of what is well done, of the thing well done. And, you know, even these buildings, you know, you look at these buildings and they're well done. It's nothing exotic, you know, it's nothing, you know, eccentrically picturesque or anything, but the intrinsic quality of the brickwork and, you know, the touches of wood. And essentially, I mean, this is not an extravagant architecture. It's a basic architecture, almost a fundamentalist architecture. But because of the infinite care for doing things well, and the honesty, the sincerity of the employment of you know, basic materials, bricks, ceramic tiles, wood. We are looking at a building you can trust. And in this case, considering the function, it's a hospital, I think it's important. You know, if you can trust a building, you trust also implicitly the functions within. It's raison d'etre. And it seems also the ivy is liking the brick wall because it climbs beautifully on it. And, you know, this was done not in the name of fashion as it is now. It was an organic, perhaps unplanned for, you know, so-called development. And even chromatically, the tension between the redness, the approximate redness of the brick and the ceramic tiles and the green of the plant it creates something that is enticing and is alive and even romantic. I like this architecture. It's a very simple architecture, but not simplistic. I mean, even here where we do not see the ivy, where we do not see the green, and it is a regular architecture, but the seriousness and also the sensitivity of the bare walls, of the sloping roof, the ceramic tiles, you can trust this kind of architecture, even if it's not very spectacular. It's an architecture that emanates quality. Now, this is a major work by him, and he left instructions, before he died, that his firm would continue to assist, for the needs of the university. It's a major university. And indeed, his firm, bearing his name, continues to do works, extensions, or whatever is needed for this work in progress, a continuous work in progress. The University of Aarhus, I don't know if I pronounce quite well, which dates from 1931, is a unique and coherent university campus with consistent architecture, homogeneous use of yellow brickwork, and adaptation to the landscape. The yellow brickwork is a trademark of this particular work, and the yellow brickwork is also the material used for the tombstone of C.F. Moller. I don't know if there is any other brick tombstone in the world, but his so-called tombstone, God, is it how it is? The material he used for for his grave is actually brick. It's just a brick wall. We are going to see a picture with it. This is the side plan, so to speak, and there is some regularity here, but there is also movement, and as you can see, it's an ample campus, and the buildings in themselves are very simple, just prisms with a sloping roof. But you'll see it is quality, and it is high quality architecture. The pictures I have are taken from the website of his firm, and they are present day pictures. They are not from 90 years ago when the building was built. They are from today. By the way, next year it will be the centennial of his founding of his firm. This is a beautiful amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater, and then the indoor amphitheater. There are also touches of historicism, but very discreet, with that, measured. I would say it's a delicate historicism. It's suggested. It's nothing, nothing to remind one of the excesses of postmodernism, which happened much later. So again, it's a functional architecture. It's a simple architecture, but it's not simplistic, and it's based literally on some intuitions, some basic intuitions, and then the ad hoc interventions of the green, like you see here, it climbs even on the roof a little bit, and it works. It's an excellent architecture. Of course, the landscape is also you know, as it should be. You know, it's not affected by you know, noisy human interventions. It's just, you know, the sloping land and the trees. And I admire the seriousness and the sensitive seriousness of Danish design in general. They have great designers, also designers of furniture. They are famous designers of fixtures. And they also have good architects. Here we see a solar clock on the wall, which is the only so-called ornament. But even this so-called ornament has a function, doesn't it? Otherwise, it's just a brick wall with an additional so-called ornamentation of the green that attaches itself naturally to the wall, and it is allowed to do what God instructs it to do. Look at this, you know, nothing, you say nothing spectacular, nothing special, but if you look more carefully, there is something special exactly within this lack of something special. I know I sound paradoxical. It's, yes, it is a building that is well built, and it's quality, you know, it's very well done. There are no you know, extravagant balconies like in the work of another Dane, that is Bjarke Ingels. No, this is a modest architecture, but it's not again, it's modest, but it's not indifferent to quality, and it is quality which makes this modesty in a way transcend itself. Look at the beauty of this fragment of the wall. You know, you don't need anything else. You don't need plaster to hide. I mean, this is architectural poetry. It is almost an artwork done with the simplest means. Well, the simplest means in terms of materials, but it's executed well, but not with that kind of frigid perfection that some other cultures or countries cultivate. You know, here each brick emanates a yes to life, because it is earth, it's clay, and you know, they are not perfect, they are not identical. You know, they are almost perfect, almost identical, but there are imperfections. But these imperfections add to the poetry of the wall. And look here, you know, I would say it's a beautiful picture. With what? With, you know, just a brick wall. You know, it's true that this brick wall, you wonder, you know, I don't know where this was taken. It's on the website of his firm today, but it seems like a special section of one of these buildings, because you see that the bricks do have variations. They come forward sometimes, and but this picture, which I like very much, shows that indeed with bricks you can do wonders. You know, just with brick and mortar, that's all. Bricks and mortar, you don't need anything else. You know, architecture is very achievable with these simple two materials. This is the lamps here. I unfortunately I forgot the name of. It's a famous Danish designer who designed the lamps, but the interior is done by C.F. Moller or C.F. Moller Architects, which is the firm that continues his work after his death. There is order, yes, there is order, and there is symmetry, but there is also sensitivity and discretion, even reticence, but it's a reticence which does not preclude the building from also having, when necessary, a certain sense of monumentality. There is monumentality, but there is also intimacy. Even in this public space with tables where probably is a place where people can eat, or I imagine, or they can discuss or even work. Um, it's fine. There is this sense of intimacy. And you see the slight curvatures on the ceiling, and also the slight the fluidities on the patterns on the floor. So they seem to reflect somehow or connect with the discrete curvatures of the top. So the top and the bottom connect, and aesthetically, and also they connect aesthetically, less explicitly, with the curvature of the arches. So that, you know, it's a space which appears at first very, very simple, and it is simple, but again, it is not simplistic. I joke sometimes, or maybe most of the time, when I tell the students, you know, if the facade of your building doesn't arrive at what you would like it to arrive, no problem. Just allow the ivy to take over. I didn't yet see a building covered partially or totally by ivy that is ugly. No, no. Ivy will make any building with any kind of facade, the worst facade of a building, if it's covered with ivy, even in part or partially, becomes at least acceptable, if not beautiful. Again, I mean, this is a Scandinavian architecture that is, you know, prismatic. It has a clarity, but because of the materials used, it also has a warmth, because bricks are warm. And in a certain way, it's a romantic architecture, even if the geometry is rather strict. But look again at the ivy, which breaks the possible monotony of the strict geometry. And the complementarity of colors, you know, also works for the benefit of the whole, you know, the whole composition. Just have brick walls and brick ceramic, ceramic tiles on the roof, and then ivy left to choose itself how to climb on the walls. I don't know, maybe it's manicured. Maybe it's, I don't think it is, but maybe, but it looks, you know, this is what nature wanted in this particular portion of the building, and I think it works. And I'm glad they didn't so-called cleaned up. Now, this is an architecture from almost 100 years ago. So it was built probably not in 1 year, but it started in 1931. So that is 90 years ago, a little more than 90 years ago. I mean, look again here, you know, this is poetry. You know, you look at the brickwork. Now, of course, you know, that there was an aesthetical intention here to make the brickwork in this way, you know, but look at what can be done just with bricks. And it doesn't require, you know, a great a great technology or a great effort to imagine something like this. There is a certain playfulness, although in this case it's a geometrical playfulness and based on a rhythm and on a system, but I think it works very well. You have nature and you have the work of man, and the complementarity creates something that is, I would say, beautiful. Now, of course, Scandinavia and Denmark, they are rather homogeneous societies and well-to-do, and there is a genuine democracy. So this is shown in their architecture as well. If there is opulence in Denmark, it's not like in the United States or other countries, ostentatious opulence. No, there even those very well-to-do, live rather discreetly. You might say this is hypocrisy. Not necessarily. There is it's a homogeneous society which prides itself in achieving a genuine democracy. Kierkegaard, the great Danish architect, from what I remember, protested against this, culture of the many, because he had the feeling that the exceptional individual like him, I imagine, had difficulties to assert himself within a society that was, where the majority kind of decided how things are or should be. I don't know, but Denmark, and not only Denmark, Norway and Sweden and Finland, I mean, these countries are really the carriers of a model of civilization. And in architecture and design, there are also examples to follow. They don't do things very, very exotic, although sometimes, someone like Bjarke Ingels, for example, contradicts a little bit the reticence of the Scandinavians in general and the Danes in particular. But and then you have John Utzon, the great architect who created the opera in Sydney, but he also has very significant works done in Denmark and in other parts of the world. All in all, the quality of the Danish design is astounding, and architecture also achieves great things, even within the international style, like Arne Jacobsen. But we look at this picture, and what do we see? We see buildings. First of all, it was said that to have a sloping roof on a tall building is rather to be discouraged. That a sloping roof doesn't look good on a tall building. But in this case, I'm not disappointed by what I look at, for some reason. And there are almost no windows. I mean, there are windows, I guess, doors where there are the balconies, but otherwise just blank walls and the prism of the tall building and the sloping roof, and that's it. Is it a severe architecture? I would use an oxymoron. I would say it's romantically severe or severely romantic. Maybe without but even without the green, I don't think it would have been really a severe architecture because of I don't know, the indelible qualities of, well, on one hand, the brickwork, and on the other, maybe the proportions, I don't know exactly what is what makes this architecture, not just mere buildings. What is this from 1930? It's a block of flats. You know, you might say it's nothing special here. Well, you know, 1930. You know, this was a number of years before the start of the war, Second World War, and its modernity. I mean, it is a modern building, which you know, if you'd build something like this today, you know, it would be okay, I guess. You know, the passage of time shows through, you know, it affected a little bit the cleanness of the building, but the building, I think, is okay. And it seems that at one time it was also, you know, covered by green. Well, a gray green, so to speak, in this black and white photograph. I mean, it's kind of interesting because Hamlet was Danish, no, was Dane, and you know, we associate Hamlet with the doubting, but somehow the clarity in the design and in the architecture of Denmark, apparently we don't see too much doubting, but I don't know if I can if I can articulate properly what I want to say. It appears to be an architecture of certitudes, but it's a modest display of certitudes. Although Bjarke Ingels is not the most modest man in the world, but he's rather an exception. In general, Danish architecture and Danish design is characterized by lack of ostentation, lack of obstinacy and ostentation. And you know, look at this building. I think it's quality. I think it's architecture. It would have been even better if this banner was not here and this one here. Now maybe I'm becoming too much of a moralist, but I like it. You know, it's a block of flats with reticence and yet subtle, indelible sensitivity, I would say. Well built. Now another block of flats, well, a complex in Copenhagen in 1935, 1939. And lots of bicycles at the base of the building, which are probably not stolen. I like very much this culture of biking. This is a very civilized country, and they understand that the obsession with cars is not a good one at all. Maybe the building is not very special. I mean, it's very regular, it's long, but look at the framework of the windows. You know, it's a minimal section for the framework, and there is a certain modernity before the Second World War here that is very well done. And you have this maybe unusual, this portion at the bottom, this fragment of the window where you can also open a small segment for refreshing the air inside. This window in itself is a small architectural event that matters. And this is the plan of the building. Very functional, these are modest apartments, with tight surfaces, areas. Interesting also here that why did he create this lack of parallelism here, enlarged a little bit towards the window, towards the outside. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I don't understand very well. Here it seems, there are two apartments at the floor. It might be that they are not so modest as I initially thought, because I see here, I don't understand that there are two kitchen. It's here one, and here is another one, and there seems to be a connection between them. I don't understand very well what's going on. It seems that this apartment communicates with this one.
If I can intervene.
Maybe here is probably a door, so it's a service stair, and I guess that's what it is. So you have a second entrance with a service staircase that has direct access to the kitchen. Yes, Max?
So there are two apartments. The kitchen is from the other apartment, accessed by the stairs from the left.
No, this kitchen belongs to this apartment, and yes, the entrance is here. There are two entrances in the apartment: the service entrance from the service staircase, and the main entrance from here. The doors are not shown, but yes, you are right. There are two apartments at the staircase. But what is strange is that these bathrooms, they are ventilated through the staircase, as you can see. But this is it open? It might be that it is open, and so but it's still rather, for example, in our country, this would be condemned. It would not be done, but it seems that there is no problem to ventilate the bathroom through the staircase. Yeah, and I guess this is the way these plans are conceived, to have two accesses. One, the service access from the smaller staircase, the service staircase, and then a main entrance. The apartments are still not opulent. They are okay, but nothing extravagant. Like this one, for example, how many bedrooms? 1, 2. It's the kitchen, the dining space, and the living room. And then the entrance from the service staircase, and the entrance from the main staircase. Yeah. And then, yes, generous loggias. It's more than a balcony, it's a loggia in a way. Yeah, it's an apartment, a block of flats which functions, and it's not, it didn't try to revolutionized the world of architecture with this building. But if you study it carefully, you notice things that make sense, and they represent a certain knowledge of how so-called normal life happens or takes place. And these are masonry walls. The building is not too tall, but I would say it's still a convincing long apartment building. And I don't think the building has any reasons to be ashamed of itself. No, it's a good work. This man also built a few churches which are remarkable, and so he had social concerns shown in the apartment buildings he built, but he also worked well for the sacred, so to speak. C.F. Moller. It's quite long. And I like the way they leave nature, to wildly assert itself, without, trimming it, without, it gives hope, I think, this way of showing your, deeply felt affection for nature. Now, for this one, I understood he was well known for this work, but this department store received new interventions from his office, actually. So I don't think it can be seen as it was in 1949. So I have 2 or 3 pictures as it looks like now, but I don't know if that's how it looked like in 1949. Probably not. It was modified to an extent by recent work done by his office. But his office is I don't know if it follows his personality. No, it is doing its own work. They have some young designers and architects, and I don't know exactly how, in what way it is still the C.F. Moller architecture office. It has the name, it bears the name, but it doesn't really do work which is following on the footsteps of C.F. Moller. And maybe that's a good thing, he didn't leave a dogmatic legacy behind. Now that's how this building looks today, but I'm sure it didn't look like this in 1949 when it was built. Now this church I like very much. So let's read. The architect C.F. Moller designed the church to unite traditional Danish church architecture with modernity. In other words, to have innovation and continuity at the same time. I remember when Kenneth Frampton, when he lectured on Carlos Scarpa, he said that Carlos Scarpa had an immense desire to remain within tradition. Okay, so let's continue to read. The church features a dominating roof which extends almost to the ground, and an otherwise simple structure which narrows towards the altar. The only window in the church room is formed in the roof. Originally, the church did not have a tower, but one was added in 1968, also designed by C.F. Moller. The church and the tower are constructed of red brick. The design is kept simple with few decorations, a decision which is repeated in the interior with white walls and simple symmetry. The church lies in a 1970 suburb of Aarhus. In relation to the nearby apartment blocks, the church asserts itself not through size, but through its weight and characteristic form. Its massive effect is accentuated by the deep cuts which separate the bell tower from the church building, and by the deep embrasure, I don't know this word, embrasure over the large round window. Möllevang Church is a green church. Green Churches is a network of Danish churches dedicated to implement and further an environmentally friendly operation and climate actions in relation to the current climate crisis. The network agenda was launched by the National Council of Churches in Denmark in 2011. Here it is. Again, a brickwork, and it does the job. You know, the simple silhouette of the tower, of the bell tower, and the nave of the church, and that's it. And I think it's architecture, and it's architecture with a capital A, I would say. So with simple geometry, but with a sensitive understanding of the characteristics and the soul of a brick, and the understanding of the significance of the roof. You know, in the triangular rhetoric, simple rhetorics of the roof, the message of worship or faith is sent out for all to see. No one has to tell you that this is a church. It is a church, and you don't need a banner with the word church on it in front. It is a church. It cannot be anything else. You see the power of the roof? It's beautiful. It's just the most regular geometry, but because of its amplitude and its dimensions, it is resolute, it is even sculptural, it is plastically or artistically eloquent, and it's enough. Good work. No, C.F. Moller was not any architect. I think he built this church in the 50s, and then he built one in the 70s, and we are going to see it next. I like this architecture very much. Is it monumental? It is. Is it warm? It is. It is kind of a warm monumentality because of the brick and the ceramic tiles on the roof. It's different from Alvar Aalto. Alvar Aalto worked with bricks, but it is different. Some of the churches of Alvar Aalto are a little more elaborate in a way, but they are not necessarily warmer or more sensitive than this work by C.F. Moller. Although the geometry used by C.F. Moller is simpler. I mean, look at this. I think it's beautiful. You know, it's construction at its most basic. You just have bricks and mortar, and he created this opening in the shape of a cross within the wall. That's it. And it doesn't need to be anything else. And you remember the main facade because it's you know, here we just have there just a detail of one of these crosses. The multitude creates a, you know, an ornamental field, and the detail is, for me, it is moving because of the truthfulness of the construction method, which is there for all to see, and the intrinsic beauty of the modest brick. Very nice work. Now, the other church that I mentioned, I said 70s, actually 1968. So it was built, I don't know, 10 years later after the one that we just saw. I will show another one. So actually I show three churches. Yeah, the other one is 1976. I forgot about this one because I only have 3 pictures or 4 with this one. Although I showed on my invitational message of the front view of this one. Again, a very simple architecture in terms of its you know, design and in its geometry, but I think it's very eloquent. And this one also tells you I am a church, although, you know, it's reduced to basics. But is it a minimalist architecture? I wouldn't call it minimalist, no. Although it is minimal in a way because of the simplicity of the lines and the simplicity of the plan and the simplicity of the geometry used. But because of the materials and even the so-called imperfection, the slight imperfections, this is, you see how things are done. You know, they are manufactured without, you know, deadly, you know, perfection. So there is a warmth, even if, well, it is well executed, but not, I don't know, maybe because of the proportions, or it's not a cold building. I didn't see it with my own eyes. I only saw it in the photographs, but I don't think it's a cold building. And I think it works. And again, the roof is emphatic, but it is emphatic, but it's not impertinent. It is still kept under control, although, you know, the emphasis is, you know, searched for, actually, and it expresses the reality of the interior space. I am sure of it. Is this an architecture that would respond to what Mies proclaimed, that less is more? Although somebody told me, an art critic, an art historian from Chicago, he told me that actually the famous you know, formulation of Mies, how did it come about? Apparently he knew very little English, and he said less is more because actually he couldn't express himself very well in English, so he only used some words. I don't know, maybe it was just a joke of that critic, although he was not a joking man, but who knows? Anyway, in this case, less is more, yes, but not again in a obsessive way. You know, it's maybe the reference to Mies is not totally warranted. This is an architecture of a I don't know, I improvise now, and I don't know how inspired I am. A delicate fundamentalism, you know, it's delicately fundamentalist. It's no more, no less. It is what it is. You cannot subtract, you cannot add, because you destroy it. And the interior, yes, the exterior expresses what we see in the interior, but the interior is still surprising and beautifully done, you know, with honest woodwork, you know, solid wood, and it's exquisite, you know, it's modernistically Gothicist somehow. The structure is just as it should be, and it's perfectly done. It's a very fine interior, and if the saying God is in the detail is correct, then God is here too. Another good work by C.F. Moller, who is no doubt an architect that must be known and studied, because he was one of the good architects of Europe in the 20th century. I mean, even the benches, you know, they are a lesson in furniture making, simple, refined, robust, honest. Now, this is actually the church from the 70s that I had in mind when I mentioned the second. It's actually the third church. So he built one in the 50s, one in the 60s, and one in the 70s. This one also is excellent and is different from the previous two. So we saw with this one, we'll see three churches by C.F. Moller, all different from each other. The site plan, you know, blocks of flats, and the church is here, and here it is. I like it very much. You know, it's a very fine building, really. I didn't know about it. I discovered it today when I included it in the presentation. I like very much how the bell tower is integrated within the prism of the building, yet slightly separated from it. You know, an excellent idea. It's not taller. It's not, you know, it's just you know, slightly separated from the rest of the building, and it works. It works very well. It's really a very fine elevation of a very fine church. And it's very original. I never saw such a church before. This reminds me a little bit actually of the church that John Utzon built in Copenhagen, which I visited, which also has the big nave of the church in the front, tall, and then behind has maybe some kind of a tradition there. I know the plan of the building by John Utzon, where in the back there are, you know, spaces for some schooling that takes place within the church, and maybe some the cells for the you know the monks, and then yes, the culmination of the building with the necessary height and emphasis, architectural emphasis is in the front elevation, the front part of the building. In a way, you could say it's, but this is actually a unique. I mean, they are slightly separated, but it belongs to the church. Here you have the sacred, the church itself, and then if there is some schooling, and I imagine it might be because in even in the Middle Ages, the church had a learning center associated with it or part of it. So the school was belonged to the church, and the school, even if it was, some kind of a concern with some kind of a religious teaching, you could say that it's close somehow because of its function, the schooling, to the profane aspect of life, while the sacrality is served with the church itself. But it's an excellent building, and look at this, and look at the nature, and look at the trees, and there is an understanding between them somehow, or the architect knew how to insert his, I hesitate to say his architectural object here. It's really, he was a master. He was a master with simple means. He did a lot. And C.F. Moller, a lesson in architecture, in my opinion. Now, is this the main entrance into the church? Unusually, small, but it doesn't bother me. I see here a taller entrance, if it is an entrance, or maybe just a window. Yes, this is rather unusual, but the window proclaims the dialogue and facilitates the dialogue with God through light at west, because this must be the western facade. You enter the western facade, but the door is mysteriously dimensioned. It's very modest, but it's still discernible on the facade. You can see it. You can. It's a very. I find it as it's a very interesting building, and unusual somehow. I mean, here is a level of domesticity almost. These small windows, and then the entrance door, just maybe 1 meter wide or something like this. And but the monumentality of the rose window, and then with the cross adequately dividing the circle in 4 sections. It's really an art with simple means to be able to convey what is to be conveyed. Here we don't have any of the flamboyance of the little church for Martin Luther that Wolf Prix built in his hometown. No, this is a different kind of architecture altogether. So it is possible with a deep feeling and with simple means to create quality architecture. And architecture cannot be anything else. It's about quality, really. It's is it impressive inside? Yes, it is. I mean, at least this is what I see in these pictures. And we'll see a detail of this in solid wood. Excellent, beautiful. really, you know, good work inflames your heart. And look at this woodwork. I mean, Denmark, they have a great tradition of working with wood, and they understand wood. They have great designers, furniture designers. Mid-century Danish design is famous all over the world, and it shows. You know, it's look at it. It's symphonic. This is music. It's architectural music, sculptural as well. It's very sculptural, but it's art. That's what it is. It is art. Does it matter that there are, you know, traces of suffering in the wood? Not at all. I think wood being alive allows for, you know, so-called imperfections. It's fine. I remember reading that Le Corbusier received once a visit from some of his countrymen, some Swiss people, some tourists, and they visited his buildings. And they said to him, nice work, good work, but there are so many imperfections. And Le Corbusier replied to them, yes, there are, but did you ever look in the mirror? Did you look at your face? Did you look at your skin? There are so many, there is a myriad of so-called imperfections and irregularities there too. Did you ever notice them? So, you know, what is alive is in the process of even changing. The skin changes, you know, rather, you know, often. Anyway, it's in my opinion, it's one of the best modern churches I know of, and I know other examples, but this passes the test of quality, I would say, brilliantly. It's a beautiful underlining of the importance of the sunlight, of light in general. You know, the building grows in height exactly towards that wall, which is the main facade of the building, both outside the building and inside the building, because there are two elevations, in this case, two facades. And the big circular opening is the channel through which the communication happens between us, the humans, and God through light. And it's a magnificent architectural poem, I think, done with simple means and without arrogance. But what is, I'm actually a little bit uneasy now, because what I see here, it seemed I presumed that this elevation was at west, but if it was at west, I don't understand where is the altar. You know, I expected here to have the nave longitudinally oriented from the entrance, but it's actually you enter, maybe this is the south facade, and in a traditional church you would enter from here, from the west, and move towards the altar. But is it here the altar? No, because this thing is in the center and there are chairs here too. Seems this is a little bit different. The orientations within the building are different from the canonic one. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it is a church for all to see, and it probably functions very, very adequately. These things here, some kind of reference, tacit reference to the crown of Jesus. I don't know. I find them a little bit, because of the darker tone, a little bit heavy, and maybe there was some kind of a formal reference to that, or the halo of the saint, of the martyr. I don't know. I don't know enough about symbolical the meanings plus I don't know what kind of religious denomination is served here. It doesn't matter, actually. You know, it's a building that I will never forget, even if I never saw it with my own eyes. And you see, through architecture, you can evoke even symbols without an explicit narrative. You know, why do these diagonal structural elements show here and not on the other side? Maybe we should, or I should analyze more the building. So the organ is here, and then yeah, I don't know what's happened here. And the vestibule, you know, it's another entrance from here. Anyway, I should not get too much concerned, perhaps, with all these things. The plan, this helps. So here we have actually the orientation. This is north. This is an unusual plan for a church. It really is. So the big round rose window is somewhere here, should be, but I don't see. Yes, no, I'm confused. The entrance door is here, and the big round opening into the wall, which is actually not a wall, where you see it's very thick, is above this, the cylinder. It's a cylinder around here. It's not shown. Just a second, we have to see this, yeah, because I'm curious. No, it's strange, you know, it's somewhere here. It's somewhere here, the big, and no, I don't understand. This is the entrance into what? I'm really confused, because I don't see this door here. I don't see it in the plan. It's no, And yet that picture is taken from somewhere here, because we see this thing here, and then we see the rows of chairs there. So this picture is taken in plan from here. And somewhere here is the big round cylindrical opening. But what I thought is a wall is actually not a wall. It's a thick, you see in the section, it's a space between two walls here. Maybe the plan is not showing everything, otherwise I would be surprised. If this is indeed what we see as the main elevation, and I think it is, because you remember the small windows in the west. I saw the western, but it's actually the eastern elevation. If this is north, this is very unusual to put in the main elevation some almost unimportant small spaces, you know, like, I don't know, administration, or I don't know, even a toilet and the little stair. This is not what you expect when you see the elevation of the building. You know, it's here, yeah. So, you know, this is the main elevation of the church. But towards the outside, he orients maybe the least important little spaces at the you know, the ground level. Also, now that if I look more carefully here, there are no steps, because this is elevated on this platform, and there are no steps here going to this door. So it's possible the entrance into the building is not through here. And indeed, in the plan, it doesn't seem to be so. Very, very interesting and very unusual. Look here. So we looked at this elevation. Yeah. And you don't access the church from here. But where do you access it from? Yes, it's from this side. Indeed, from the west. You actually enter from the west, as it should be, but here it's like the back elevation. This one, the main, and also the height is this elevation. So you enter from the west, and well, the altar is somewhere here, so it is at east. But it's still a very unusual, because in a regular Christian church, you enter from the west, if this was the west, and you have the long nave, and here is east, and that's where the altar is. But here you enter perpendicularly on the nave, and kind of, I don't know, it's a very unusual plan. And conventional critique of the building would comment negatively on the fact that you enter, you know, near the toilets here at west. This is clearly the main entrance, but it's in the back of the building, and you know, you have the public toilets here. And also he orients towards this, the most architecturally significant elevation of the building, you know, the so-called least important rooms, small rooms. Very, very interesting work. I will stop contemplating it now in an ad hoc manner. I should have reflected on this before, but I did this presentation actually today. But this church intrigues me. It's a very interesting church, and it is anti-canonical. Although, if you look at it from the outside, its symbolism is clearly sent out. Okay, now we go to a work. He died in 1988, so he was alive in 1976, although he was 78 years old. And this is a work I knew nothing about, but it's beautiful. And it's very interesting. And it's done for two artists, Carl Henning Pedersen and Else Alfeld. It's a museum. There were artists associated with a very inspiring art movement called Cobra. Look, I mean, really, this is an astonishing work. And it was done in the 70s in Denmark by C.F. Moller and his office. Let's see if I have a text here. No, but I read about it. They took over some industrial buildings and transformed them into a museum. And even the view from the air is splendid. It's like an artwork, you know. If this was a painting or a graphic work, I would put it on the wall. And here you see the buildings, you know, museum, and I guess some kind of a cultural center. This is, you know, this is a very civilized country and society, and you know, well-to-do, and they take care of everything. And this is a work which in no way is inferior to the best works by Big and Bjarke Ingels and Toyo Ito too, because Toyo Ito built a museum. And then even you can see all kinds of references, important references, architectural references in the present. But this work was done in the 70s by this architect who is not so well known by us and maybe by many people outside of Denmark. But he deserves attention, because this is a work that is so very different from what we see previously. This is a work without brick, without the romanticism of organic materials. It's a different kind of aesthetic altogether. And maybe here, I don't know if it was done consciously, and I don't know if you know, but Asger Jorn, a great Danish painter, who also was associated with the Cobra movement, and with his friend John Woodson, they planned to do a museum for Asger Jorn. Unfortunately, Asger Jorn died at 56 or so, I think, and the museum never came into being. But there are beautiful drawings done by John Woodson for that museum. And Asger Jorn wanted to paint with his artworks, just like these two artists, also part of the Cobra movement, painted the walls of the museum. So it's possible that in a certain way, this museum, this work by C.F. Moller, you know, found some kind of inspiration or pays homage to that unrealized project by John Woodson and Asger Jorn. I like this work very much, and it's again, it shows, you know, the open-mindedness, the joie de vivre artistically of these Danes. And what can I say? What can we say? We can only admire them, I think. Now I'm thinking not of a Dane, but of a Norwegian painter who left his paintings outdoors to be affected by the elements, by rain, by snow, and the droppings of birds. Can you imagine something like this? You know, the painter who painted that famous artwork, The Scream. Norwegian, not Danish. Art is beautiful, and it is the interior. The interior is, predictably a white museum. What can we say? I even see some echoes from the museum, art museum built by Le Corbusier in Japan, in the lighting system and break in the roofing. Otherwise, it's a museum with white walls, with artworks displayed on tables and on the walls. Very septic. Maybe the light coming from above was inspired by the library by Alvarado. Alvarado used this system several times. But then you look at this black, fabric of the seating area. This contrast is courageous, I would say, and I think it works. Is in itself some kind of artistic statement. I was thinking here, about Edvard Munch. I read that Edvard Munch, the Norwegian painter, he painted a lot, and he would bring his paintings outside, but canvas paintings, not like these done on walls, and would leave them there in outdoors. So the rain would follow them, the snow would follow them, and the droppings of the birds would follow them. What do you make of this? I like it. It's about marrying art and life, and not being concerned about, petty, to protect the artwork to the point where it becomes divorced from art, from life, that very life that inspired the art. This also reminds me of the ukiyo-e, Japanese woodcut, great artist of the 19th century. Well, second half of the 18th and the first 3/4 of the 19th or so. The great ukiyo-e movement. They did great artworks, truly great artworks, but they didn't have the obsession with keeping the artwork in a mahogany frame and, with the right temperature, and keep it inside, and wipe out every dust and so on. No, they would hang the works of genius from branches of trees, from the frames of the windows, from the frames of doors, and this great art form of the Japanese culture, the ukiyo-e, the floating world, the woodcuts, became known to equally great European artists like Manet, Monet, Degas, Van Gogh, who, when they had money, they would buy fish that came from Japan, and it became wrapped in beautiful woodcuts done by great Japanese woodcut artists from the 19th century. The fish came to Europe, arrived in Europe, sometimes wrapped in great artworks, in Japanese woodcuts. That's what I read. That's how Europeans came to know of Utamaro and Hokusai and so on. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story, actually. The impure and beautifully alive dialogue between what we call life and what we call art. This is a great work also by C.F. Moller, and look at the plan. It's in itself is a nice graphic work. Abstract, very pure. For the Romanians here, I can tell you that there is, in my opinion, a great issue of Secolul 20 dedicated to Denmark. And in fact, I just bought it from a second-hand bookstore. I received it 2 days ago. It's a thick volume, all dedicated to Denmark. Anyway, the beauty of you know of the sections, the plans, the buildings, the the honoring of the artists and so on this is what art should be about. It's about purity, about courage, about freedom of expression. And this is a big yes, or they together say a big yes to life and to art alike. This is what creativity should be. C.F. Moller again. Now, I'll show some works done by his office after he died. In fact, these are very recent works, and I'll show some projects which are not yet realized, but they will be. They win a lot of competitions. C.F. Moller architects, they win almost every competition they take part in. You see, C.F. Moller architects, this is the the reception area, the secretary and so on, the receptionist in their office in Copenhagen. I imagine here there are the partners. You can see they are rather youngish, and must be nice to be an architect who does creative work and is successful and wins competitions. And yeah, I think they continue beautifully the work of C.F. Moller. What he did by himself and associated with a few other architects was brilliant. And what these people do now is significant too. And we can salute them and congratulate them. Now, C.F. Moller presents plans for a timber town in Örnsköldsvik in Sweden. C.F. Moller has been chosen to design. I noticed this, but this is maybe just because of the media that Moller is written with a small m. So C.F. Moller has been chosen. In one case, I corrected it, but I see that everywhere is written like this. C.F. Moller has been chosen to design a residential quarter in Sweden made entirely out of wood. Hello, Bogdan Postole. Wood, not concrete. Held by the municipality of Örebro, together with the Swedish Association of Architects. The competition called for proposals that detail plans for a new vibrant quarter of the city with a clear idea of how to enrich the city's social networks by integrating nature into the urban landscape. Named Örnsköldsvik Trästad, meaning Örnsköldsvik Timber Town. The contest was won in collaboration with that person. So architects today, very conscious of the climate changes. They know that concrete pollutes and pollutes badly. They stay away from concrete as much as possible. Unfortunately, by building with timber, they cut down forests, they cut down trees. So we have this dilemma: to use concrete and pollute the world, or to use timber and pollute implicitly because we cut down the very source of ozone, we cut down the trees. So we are in a no-no situation, actually. But this is the project for Sweden, and it looks like a good project. And the only negative remark I have, but I don't have a solution to this, is that by building with timber, we cut down trees, when in fact we should plant trees and cut as little as possible. Ideally, we shouldn't cut any tree, but what can you do? I guess we have to invent new materials which do not involve cutting down trees and do not involve using the conventional concrete work. So this is a project for a village in Sweden. These countries are well-to-do, they have the means, and they are democratic enough, and they are pushing the frontiers of democracy and of architecture alike. Bravo to them, bravo to all of them. Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, Iceland. How are the birds flying so happily there in the future when this complex of buildings will be built? I don't know, we don't know. But look at the positioning of the prismatic buildings. You know, there is a joyous disorder here. You know, there is no greed. And I like this. Why should there be a greed? You know, I think it works just fine. There is a lot of concern now, as you know, about you know, the climate changes, about building in sustainable ways, bringing back nature again. Unfortunately, in order to build timber buildings, and they even build the tallest timber building in Sweden, you cut down trees. Now, this is the building I was referring to, C.F. Moller Architects. I changed the name from a small one to a big one. Complete Sweden's tallest timber building. They have completed Sweden's tallest timber building, which is now accepting its first tenants, although the pictures I have show that the construction process still continues. Situated in Västerås, 1 hour from Stockholm, the building is constructed from solid timber, hello, poor trees, in order to radically reduce CO2 emissions, positively affect the indoor climate, and enhance the interior quality of life. Yes, but by cutting down trees in order to get the timber, you also implicitly amplify the CO2 emissions because there is nothing to fight it. I mean, there is less to fight it with because there are less trees. It's a no-no situation. It's a difficult situation. Maybe the most sustainable way to build is to abstain from building. But the architects cannot do that, of course. Maybe we should all become gardeners. The 8.5 stories, so it's 8.5 stories high, and it's made of timber, features an elevated ground floor and double high top floor with all walls, beams, balconies, lifts, and stairwells made from cross-laminated timber. The use of CNC milled solid timber and glulam allows for an airtight, energy-efficient structure without the need for additional cladding. And this is the building was built. It's this one, of course. Interesting, all timber. Interesting. Are these electrical outlets or what are they here? The building, I think, is still in the process of construction. At least the pictures from the outside seem to say so. These countries are really thinking and acting forwardly. You know, I remember I was coming from Chicago to Malmö in Sweden, and I felt like a provincial man, like a man from a backward country coming to a forward-looking country. Malmö has the new city in Malmö is unbelievable, was unbelievable for me at that time. Much more advanced than anything I had seen in the United States. So CF Moller Architects continuing to do good work after the death of the founder of the firm, C.F. Moller, and experimenting and searching for new ways that are appropriate for our time. So this is in Sweden. It's clear from this picture that people already moved in. It's a good building. It is a good building. Too bad it involved cutting down trees. Now this tower, let's read about this. The Merckx Tower is a state-of-the-art research building whose innovative architecture creates the optimum framework for world-class health research, making it a landmark in Copenhagen. It aims to contribute positively by linking the University of Copenhagen with the surrounding neighborhoods and wider city. So this firm, which next year will be 100 years old, is still relevant, not just to Denmark, but to the whole world. Okay, C.F. Moller reveals a wooden skyscraper for Stockholm. So C.F. Muller's proposal for the ambitious vision outlined by HSB Stockholm's competition is a towering solar-powered wooden structure. Again, wooden structure, not concrete structure. HSB, Sweden's largest housing cooperative, and therefore in an ideal position to ask what Swedish housing should and could look like by the time the organization turns 100 in 2023. While the competition brief called for an intelligent approach to housing that would both create a dialogue between future residential architecture and posit a solution to high density sustainable living, the Berg. This is, I don't know, maybe it's translated from Swedish or from Swedish. C.F. Moller design seeks to positively exploit the best qualities of wood with a 34-story skyscraper, 34-story, made of wood, set to create a beacon for Stockholm. More than a distinguishing mark on the landscape, the tower aims to become a meeting point in the city with street-level cafes, a community center, market square, and communal winter garden. The proposal is considered vision by a private housing complete with energy efficient. No, the translation is not so good. Sorry. Glazed verandas and generous, brilliantly joined expanses of variously grained wood. The structure will have a concrete core, which you'll see is very minimal. Concrete core, but employs a timber system of planes that allows inhabitants to have individual gardens. This is the tower that is proposed. It was not yet built, as far as I know. We have seen, skyscrapers done not in wood, but in concrete or steel, not very different perhaps, but this is, you'll see the plan is innovative to an extent, not just because it uses wood. So again, this is just the project with which they won the competition. Now look at the plan. This is concrete right here, and maybe these two walls. Everything else around is made with timber, with wood. What is interesting is that it's a sandwiched facade. There are two walls, exterior walls. Is this one where the actual building could have ended. And then there is another one. So there is a double facade, an enclosure with glass here, maybe moving panels. I don't know very well. With openings, but also with glass panes. Here we have four apartments. You know, it's very minimal, very efficient. Two big elevators, and there are the stairs here. The stairs are outside, not in the core. So we have concrete just here, and everything else is wood and then glass. Interesting, and they will probably build it. It's not bad. Is it a post-Anthropocene tower? Only partially so, because of this concern with having no concrete, and it's you know, it uses timber, but it's light. It's in that sense, it's somehow so-called post-Anthropocene. Or no, maybe we shouldn't use that word. It's a different kind of tower, a tower that on one hand proclaims the ability of human beings to build you know, tall buildings, but it's also because of this avoidance to use polluting materials, and the lightness of the silhouette of the building you know, is staying away from arrogance and for oppressiveness. But again, questions arise because of this. It seems almost unavoidable, but I'm not sure about it. You know, what can we do? You know, we cannot continue to build with concrete, and at the same time, we cannot continue to cut down trees. But you cannot get timber without trees. So without cutting them, without cutting down trees. So it's a difficult situation, and what, unless we invent some materials that do not pollute, and it's complicated. Anything that human beings do needs energy, and even electrical cars, you know, they are not perfectly, you know, sinless. No, they are not, you know, because they need batteries, and those electrical batteries are not innocent arrivals on the human scene or on the world scene. Otherwise, of course, it must be nice to live here and in Stockholm, of course. But anyway, yes, the diagram shows you know, a successful building. Everything is under control. The sun is happy, the rain is happy, the winds are happy, the birds are happy. Everybody's happy. The sound is blocked off by the double skin of the building. I'm talking about the sound of the car, the noise that is, but I don't think you know, humans are capable of truly achieving paradise on earth, not even in Sweden, and not even with the help of C.F. Moller architects. Here you see the plan a little better than in the previous picture. So the plan is not, as you can see, is not a square. It's a slightly deformed square, and so this creates a certain movement, which is beneficial to the appearance of the building. This adds something to the the building is not static, is dynamic, even though in a discrete way, because of this lack of perfect rectangularity. And this is the last image of this presentation, is the gravestone, which is actually the grave brick. A grave brick, maybe, a new word should be invented, the grave brick. It's a wall, it's a fragment of a wall done with bricks, with the beloved bricks of C.F. Moller. And, the place is shared with his wife. And what can we say? We can say that he was a very good architect, and next year, maybe in October when he was born, we'll talk about him again. So goodbye, Mr. Moller.